Let's go ahead and start the meeting. It is 6:33. Jeremy, would you like to do the invocation?
Please join me as we honor the men and women who have given the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. For a moment of silence first, please. Thank you. Now in prayer, dear Heavenly Father, thank you once again, Lord, that we get to come and look over our beautiful city and hopefully make good decisions to continue to make this place one of the best places to live. We're so blessed, Lord. Everything that we look around, it's a home that we can be proud of. It's a home that we have good people around us. And let us just keep it that way. And in your name, amen.
Yeah, thank you. Please stay standing. John, would you like to take over the salute? Oh, John, well, yeah. Well,
Do it at the same time.
Do it at the same time. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
okay. City Clerk, would you like to call the roll call?
Councilmember Castillo?
Here.
Councilmember Dane?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Here.
Mayor Welty?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay. Mayor, City Attorney, would you like to discuss our closed session?
I would like to report out a closed session.
Thank you.
We have not completed our closed session, so the city council will be returning to closed session after open session today, Mayor. Of the items we did get through, by consensus, the city council authorized the initiation of litigation on one item. Thank you.
Okay, I am greatly honored today to have a ceremonial manner, and that'll be the Citizen of the Month. And I'd like to acknowledge Bobby Kelty, a Citizen of the Month, and let me give you some information about Bobby Kelty. In 2021, he took the position as the Canyon Lakes Tennis Pro after years of being an active member in the tennis community. In 2023, Bobby joined the Elsinore High School junior varsity baseball team as coach. He served on the Canyon Lakes Tennis Club's board for several years and has helped run many tennis clinics and programs in the community. In his professional career, Bobby played for the Minnesota Twins, Toronto Blue Jays, Oakland Athletics, and the Boston Red Sox. He also hit a pinch hit solo home run in Game 4 of the 2007 World Series. He doesn't like me to talk about this, but yeah, he hit the run, and his team won by, believe it or not, one home run. So thank you, Bobby, for that. And I really want to, Bobby, my son played tennis under Bobby, and my son went to a number of different tennis pros. We went to Marietta, we went to Riverside, we went to a handful of places. And while I was doing that, Bobby was taking his kids to different places to have tennis lessons. And what we realized is that we didn't have a cohesive tennis community team. And Bobby kind of stepped up and said, I'm just not going to give lessons. I'm going to build a team from this community where this community actually feels like a team. They actually know each other. They actually go to school together. And he changed one of the formats, which I was very impressed, because normally tennis pros like to fill their dance card with single lessons, and they bring in one kid at a time and one kid at a time, and they make their money, and that's a lot of what tennis pros do. Bobby took the position and says, I'm going to bring in 10 kids, and I'm going to keep them for 2 hours. And these kids who are going to be playing each other, who are pretty good, who are teaching each other the tennis, became a team. They became a unit. And when they talked about going somewhere, they got my son, who dragged a lot of tennis rackets around, unhappy. When it came to come to Bobby's lessons, he was excited, he was thrilled, he was energized, because he was going to go play with his friends, and his friends were some very high-quality tennis players. The only thing that my son struggled with is all the girls were better than him, but he got over it. And so, come on up, Bobby. I'm going to give you the mic, and maybe you can talk about. You doing the summer program?
I am, yeah.
Can you give us a little quick talk about the summer program?
Yeah. So right now we have a few junior teams that are going right now. Typically Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have about 17 to 18 kids that come pretty much every Tuesday and Thursday right now. So it's a very full group. we've always done really well with the teams that we've had. We had a team win all of Southern California a year ago, which was awesome. Very much a surprise, and the final came down to literally one game. That's how we won it. So it was a really definitely a really fun event to be a part of. We had some boys that won Southern California as well. That was 3-4 years ago. And, I work with the adults as well, obviously, and they've done a fantastic job over the years. They got a lot of championships and stuff. But I got into it because my daughters, for the most part, they were getting good, and I didn't want them to get better than me. So I started I started taking lessons from a guy who played on tour and played at the U.S. Open. He played at Wimbledon. He played at all the 4 major events. So I learned a lot from him for about 2 years, and then I basically, what he taught me is kind of what I bring to the table in Canyon Lake, and I try to teach the same philosophy and same technique and stuff that he taught me during that time period. So yeah, it's been a super fun ride. The one thing I think a lot of people like to hear about is the home run I hit in the World Series. It was a situation, I was with the Red Sox, we were playing the Colorado Rockies, and I was a bench player, so I didn't get a lot of playing time. And the night before, it was just, I hope that I just get in the game. Pinch run, I don't care, defense, anything to just say that I actually played in it. And so there was only one guy from the Rockies that I knew I may hit off of, and it was a lefty out of the pen. And I did visualization. I don't know if you guys know what visualization is, but I did visualization against this guy. Probably, I must have did it 1,000 times within the last 3 days. So in my mind, I'd faced him 1,000 times, so I was ready to face him. I knew exactly what he had. And it came into it was the top of the 8th, and sure enough, he came in, and the manager actually chose somebody else first, and I don't know what changed his mind, but he changed his mind to me last second. It was freezing that day. We were in Colorado. It was pretty much snowy type weather, and I grabbed a bat. I had about 10 seconds to kind of get warmed up. The umpire was calling me over, hey, we got to go. We don't have much time, And so commercial break was finishing up, and I was walking to the plate, and the only thing I put in my mind was, this is my chance, so I'm not going up there taking pitches. And so the very first pitch was a fastball right, kind of center cut down the middle, and swung and hit it. So knew I hit it out and ran around, and somehow I don't remember any of that for the most part because I was so excited. It almost felt like, it was so weird. It felt like there was like a fog everywhere, running around the bases because I was so excited. And then ran in, and guys like Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz are like picking me up and hugging me, and and stuff like that. And pretty big moment. Yeah, pretty big moment. So. And then it just so happened that they hit a 2-run home run in the top of the 9th, and that home run ended up being the game-winning RBI. But super humble about it. Yeah, so it was a great career and stuff. And if you ever wanted to talk about other stuff, just let me know. But I appreciate Dale recommended me for this. I'm sure everyone was a part of it. Obviously, I know you, Mark, real well, so thank you. It's a great honor. Appreciate it, and best of luck to you guys. I know you guys probably get a lot of heat sometimes, so hang in there.
We're gonna bring you up for a picture.
Okay, right here.
Right over here. Well, the council will all step up. And just one comment, the Canyon Lake parents, grandparents, the opportunity to have your kids taught by Bobby in tennis is a great opportunity you're not going to find anywhere else, and it's incredible that it's blocks away from most of our houses.
When I say 3, don't blink. I'm going to take 2, so just don't blink the whole time. The whole time. Tina got Terry's phone. And last one. All right, we're good.
Just kidding.
Mark, you bring those papers to you, the chair. No. Jessica, go get them.
Okay. Sorry. We'll move on with community reports. Director Darcy Burke.
Good evening, Mayor Welty, councilman, staff, Kenya Lakers, guests. This is actually a very sobering report, unfortunately. Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District is a retail water agency. We are represented by two wholesale agencies, Eastern Municipal, but mostly Western Municipal at Metropolitan. As many of you know, I spend a lot of time at Metropolitan because, quite frankly, I don't always think we have the best representation. Yesterday, I sat through a number of rate alternatives for a biannual budget, and the proposal made by Los Angeles and San Diego was a 48% rate increase over the next 3 years. Let me say that again, 48%. Metropolitan full-service water is the most expensive water there is. Now, granted, it's high quality. I'm not going to argue that. 48%. We have budgeted to absorb 5%, 6%, 8%, as they had projected. We are not able to absorb a 48% increase over the next 3 years. The alternative that I spoke for, and I want to make sure you understand this, was for an alternative that would double the ad valorem increase on your property tax bill. So you're not thinking, Darcy, 100% increase. That's 0.7%. That would have been a $40 increase for the year, on average. This is going to be a $600 a year increase, on average. So I say this because water matters. It matters to our region that's growing. It matters to our working families that are struggling to pay their bills now. It matters if you're thinking about development. They don't want to look at us right now as a region. Los Angeles is not growing, it's shrinking. Their families are moving here for a better quality of life. And my job as your water director is to ensure water reliability, but most importantly, public health. But I need to do it at an affordable rate. I may call on you in the next month to write a letter about what is prudent, that what matters, because a 48% rate increase over 3 years to me is unacceptable. And silence from some of our wholesale agency is also unacceptable. So before you hear from somebody else, well, she wanted to raise the property tax 100%, 0.7% at $40 a year, I will take that all day long, versus $600 on average for a year. So it's really about the numbers. On a brighter note, Splash into Spring is March 23rd, so if you'd like to see the infrastructure that you pay for locally, if you'd like to meet the staff that makes things work, I encourage you to go. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer today. Normally I'm very positive, but this is big decisions happening. These are things that directly impact our families, our residents, our community. And it also impacts our ability to buy water for our lake. Because it's not just fully treated water, it's untreated water, right? So yes, we've been very fortunate for the last few years. We have a lot of rain. We're not turning the plant on anytime soon. But our quality of life, we have a wonderful golf course, that's great. We have a new lodge, that's great. But lots of people have that. Nobody else has a lake. Nobody. That, to me, in my estimation, is the best amenity we have. And to keep it the way we have it, in a way that people can use it and enjoy it, is also my responsibility when I represent you at the board. So it has been a tough last few days. It's very difficult when we are so small in population to go up against 10 million people. But your voice matters. So be aware, Mayor, I'm going to be reaching out probably in the near future for a letter, because letters matter. If you can't come and speak, LA is not easy to get to. It takes me about 3 hours to get there every time I go and about 4 hours to get home. It's worth it. They hear me. They know who I am, and they know who I represent. And I'm not going to be silent. And if you know me, I have a very big mouth. The other thing I want to talk about is really making sure our residents understand the value of that lake and that water. And you had asked me or suggested a video. So I'm going to end my public comments with the first to see it, a draft video that our staff put together about how we operate the reservoir known as Canyon Lake. So if you'd let that go, and then I'll answer any questions if you have any.
In the heart of southwest Riverside County lies a critical drinking water source for our communities, the Canyon Lake Reservoir. Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, or EVMWD, is entrusted with managing this precious resource that sustains our lives. EVMWD serves the cities of Lake Elsinore, Canyon Lake, Wildomar, and areas in Murrieta, as well as portions of Riverside County and Temescal Canyon, providing essential water sources to thousands of residents. One of our most valuable assets is the Canyon Lake Reservoir, not just a scenic spot for recreation, but a critical source of drinking water for our region. EVMWD owns the lake and all the water in it. As a vital drinking water source, the lake supplies approximately 15% of the water for the service area. The Canyon Lake Property Owners Association manages recreational uses for the lake, but this is a secondary function of the lake. During rainy seasons, Canyon Lake water levels can potentially rise several feet, prompting residents to ask why the reservoir valves aren't open to alleviate the situation. As a water provider, EVMWD's primary responsibility is to safeguard our water resources, providing clean, reliable water 24/7. The dam at Canyon Lake serves the primary purpose of creating a reliable drinking water reservoir. Lake levels rising are a natural occurrence. The dam and reservoir were designed to maximize the collection of water for multiple purposes. Valves are opened only when necessary for maintenance, testing, or to maintain the integrity of the dam. EVMWD is committed to managing our water resources responsibly, prioritizing water supply for our current and future customers, while safeguarding our environment. Together, let's continue to protect our water resources and preserve this precious resource for generations to come.
There are a few edits they're working on, but I just wanted you to see it first because you asked for it, and I really appreciated the recommendation. Happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful presentation. Any help you need from us, please contact myself or the city manager
Thank you.
and let us know.
Thank you for advocating for us. And thank you for, I think that video is going to be helpful for some understanding in our community.
Thank you.
I have a quick question on the,
Sure.
the proposed 48% increase.
Mhm.
Is that on everybody that uses metropolitan
Yes.
water? Okay.
But let me
So that's
also-
not targeted to us.
It's not, but it also depends on how much you use. So for the city of Los Angeles, who has the LA Aqueduct, you ever saw Chinatown, you know how that went down, they go on and off Metropolitan. So right now, there is a lot of storage in their reservoir, which is Owens Valley. So for the next 3 years, they have no intention of buying Metropolitan water, which would be the span of this rate increase. So they also have the misperception, in my opinion, that they have spent too much money in property tax to help Metropolitan. I would say that's a misperception. We're going to have to agree to disagree on that. So it depends on how dependent you are on Met. The small city of San Fernando, for example, hasn't bought water from Metropolitan in decades. But when their wells were put out of commission in the Sylmar earthquake in the 70s, they actually had to join Met. They had to pay the fee, it would have been in 1932 all the way forward, for the opportunity to hook up to Met. So it's not necessarily that you have how much water you buy. You have the reliability and the resiliency to turn the tap on when you need it. So for us, PFAS is in our lake, but we had other sources, right? Met being one of them. We supplemented with Metropolitan. Orange County had to shut down all their wells and buy Met water, right? So they come on and off. It really depends on what your water sources are. We are 70% dependent on Metropolitan. When I can't turn on Canyon Lake, that turns into 80% dependent on Metropolitan because we're pumping more to try and offset the impact of rates. So I would much rather use local resources like Canyon Lake, like our groundwater. But when there's no other option, you go to Metropolitan. And right now, that's our main option. So it's critical that that water remain affordable. That help you?
Yes.
So you were thinking it was going to be, how much?
The alternative I wanted was 5%, 5%, 5%, and 8% over 4 years, doubling the ad valorem to 0.7%. And we had budgeted for that increase in our RARE program, in our current rate structure, and all of that.
What was the rationale?
They don't want any additional property tax. They want people to conserve more. So their perspective is if we charge you more, you'll use less. Now, let me just tell you, I know that not to be necessarily true. In Canyon Lake, 49% of my division are on auto pay. They never even open their bill, and they are the least efficient. They still won't open their bill, and they still will be on auto pay. I go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What they care about is the water quality in the lake. They don't want algae. They want access. They want it to be good, clean, reliable. That's what they're paying for, and that's what I'm working to deliver. They don't want to be told to use less. They want to be efficient if that's what they choose to do, but you're not going to punish them with a rate. That's not going to work. The only people you're going to punish are seniors, are veterans that are living on fixed incomes of pensions, and those that can't afford it. That's who you're going to punish. And when you talk about equity in LA, this is the most inequitable proposal I can ever imagine.
I agree.
Because those people that can't afford it are not property owners. They're renters. So they're going to bear the brunt. And you all know if you go to buy property that doesn't have water service, what's the value versus that property with water? Beneficiary pays, right? To me, it makes perfect logistic sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good? Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Okay, next will be Canyon Lake Properties Owners Association. It looks like Greg Doherty's here today. I think we see you pretty often around town.
Well, I have news nowhere near as dire as Darcy's. Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and staff, I'm here tonight in place of Bill Van Vliet, who is off on a well-deserved vacation overseas. I'm going to give you a brief report on the board meeting last week and a couple of other tidbits. The first thing we did last week is we honored someone that probably most of you know, Shauna Bowen. She's the founder of the Family Matters Club, which is celebrating its 10th year. She's been involved in the car club, the women's club. She's been and is everywhere. So we gave her the Member of the Month award last week. And then it was time for a big night of POA finances. The first topic was our responsibility, the board's responsibility to review and approve the operating budget, which came in after hundreds of hours of work by a lot of people, the finance committee and staff of POA, at rounded number $14.3 million, which is not bad, 5.5% increase over last year. Given the upward pressure on wages that we all are aware of and the upward pressure on costs of goods and services, that really wasn't a bad increase. So we approved that. The next thing was we had to contribute, as we always do, the appropriate amounts to the reserve accounts, the repair and replacement reserve account, the road reserve account, and the capital improvement fund. We actually raised the recommended contribution to the road reserve fund by $600,000 and approved a combined operating budget and reserve account number of, turned out to be $4,021 per household, which works out to $335 a month in dues payments, which is a $17 increase over the $318 for the current year just ending, which is, again, 5.3% overall, which is, considering the inflation we've all seen in the past couple of years, which is now abated somewhat, but we had to live through it the past year and suffer the consequences, really isn't too bad. Some people consider $17 a bitter pill, but our responsibility is to make sure this community is well-funded for the future, and that we've got money in the piggy bank, and that's what we tried to do. We think we succeeded. The third thing we did on the financial side is we approved the community patrol contract, which was up after 3 years with Allied Universal. Very long process. Again, lots of people involved, a lot of hard work. We identified 20 companies, and then we went from 20 down to 14, and then down to 10, and finally down to 3 in a kind of a process of elimination. And one of those 3 was Allied Universal, our current provider, and they provided the best bid, and we approved that contract at the meeting. So that will be entered into very shortly. So a couple of other bits and pieces at the POA. The Lodge this past weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, had its biggest, the Lodge restaurant in the patio, had its biggest revenue year in history. Now, that's kind of to be expected because we have a bigger facility now, so hopefully more people will come, and they did. So that was really good news. It kind of reinforced our hopes of going forward of that being a real gem of our community. The club presidents meeting, we're going to have that in April, and just to kind of air out things with the club presidents and so forth with staff and POA. And lastly, the e-bike reward program is still in progress. We're going to, a handful of vendors, mostly in the town center, are being contacted for their participation. The gift cards will probably be in the amount of $10. We talked about $5, we talked about $20. $5's not enough, you can't buy anything for $5 anymore. So that's still in progress, and expected to roll out probably in the next couple of months. So that's my report. Do you have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next up, Canyon Lake Chamber of Commerce, John Gonde, President of the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city staff, everybody else. As always, I'm honored and thrilled to be here tonight. I will be very brief, I promise. Few things. About a week or so ago, last Thursday, we had our monthly business roundtable meeting. And leading our discussion, which I'll discuss in just a moment, was a major and a chief from the United States Air Force, and talked about what to expect when hiring and managing employees who are military reservists. And I, for one, think it was a very productive discussion and also enlightening. Our next business roundtable meeting, which is always the first Thursday of the month, is going to be April 4th. It's always at 7:15 a.m. We promise to have everyone out by 8:30, and it's at the Magnolia Room, which is downstairs at the Country Club. It is a chamber member event only. However, if anyone would like to attend as a guest, see me, and I'd be delighted to have you come down and check out the meeting. Next week, on the 21st, which is a week from tomorrow, is going to be our after-hours mixer. That's going to be at Sports Stop, 6 p.m., I think till about 8 or 9 or so. It is a free event for chamber members, $15 for non-members. So I'm hoping to see some, most, or maybe even all of you there. Those events are a great way to continue to nourish relationships of your fellow organizations and businesses here in Canyon Lake. And last but not least, on the 20th of April is our second annual Battle of the Businesses. So for those of you who attended last year, we had a lot of fun. Contributing teams were businesses and organizations, about 5 or 7 members or so. We competed in a variety of events like tug of war, kayak racing, jump roping, piggyback race, cornhole. And so I'd encourage some of the, maybe even the city staff or council members to put together a team, and some of our other members. It's a great way to engage with the community. We had a great turnout. We had food trucks and a DJ, but it's also a great way to promote your business or organization while having a lot of fun. Great team and morale building for that. I think that's everything I have to present this evening. Any questions? All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker, Lake Elsinore Unified School District Trustee Jeanette Vanderpool. Oh, she's on a plane. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely not qualified to fill that shoe today, so we'll just, okay, public safety reports.
Oh, I'm sorry, she sent me an update.
Oh, good.
She said they don't vote. She wants to announce that they don't vote until tomorrow. I don't really know what that means. And she would also like to remind people to use the paper app for free tutoring in all subjects, grades 6 through 12, and continue to communicate with her any needs or concerns. If she is made aware of an issue, she can help fix it. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll do public safety updates. City of Canyon Lake Code Enforcement. Mike, you're going to step up for this one?
Same rules apply as last time? No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to be giving the report for the month of February. I'm going to go right into it. 4 unpermitted constructions were cited. There were 7 NPDES violations, all due to the lack of BMPs on construction sites not being in place. There was 1 public nuisance. Regulations of BLM lands, there was warnings, 25 dirt bikes, 2 razors, 2 vehicles, and 2 citations were issued. Again, there were 2 citations, the rest were verbal warnings. We had 1 AVA notice violation issued, no violations for zoning, 0 for conducted businesses without a business license, which is good, 1 new foreclosure registration, 1 short-term rental notice was issued. For residential rental registrations, we're at 315 registered rental properties, of which 294 are renewed, 27 are pending renewals, 5 new unregistered property rentals found, 8 inspections conducted, 2 self-certifications completed, and then for business license, 2 new commercial business registrations were issued, 3 new home occupations, 9 new out-of-city businesses, and 30 renewals. And that concludes my report.
Any questions? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
There we go. Riverside County Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Edwards, do you have you're going to do a presentation today?
I am. You're excited, I know. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, good evening, staff. Can you hear me? As promised, I have the 2023 annual report. This report is also going to be published on the city's website, so they can reference it there later if need be. Just kind of some overview of the city. Message from the captain, I'll let the residents read that one. This is the management staff over at the Lake Elsinore Station. And just as a reminder, there's 24 supported hours per day, which is 2 deputies per day is what the city gets. So for patrol operations, total calls for service was 4,664. Out of that were 87 arrests, 13 were DUIs, with a total of 62 citations. For our Investigations Bureau, these are all the cases that go back to the Investigations Bureau for further follow-up. We had 27 cases assigned, 22 are closed, 6 ended in arrest. For our CBAT team, so for mental health crisis, we actually have a team that works all the area. They had 13 referrals, and they actually came out to Canyon Lake for 36 calls. Now we're getting into the UCR data. So overall, you're looking at a 6.5% increase from 22 to 23 with 98 Part 1 crimes. Out of the Part 1 crimes, property crimes, so for burglaries for 23, you had 7, 52 larcenies, 25 auto thefts, 0 arsons, for a total of 84. You have a 5-year comparison there, so you can see year over year what it's been. When we get to violent crimes, for 23, 0 homicides, 0 rapes, 0 robberies. You had 11 aggravated assaults for a total of 11 Part 1 violent crimes. This is our response time. So how we categorize our response times are 1 through 4. 1 are threats to life, 2 are immediate, 3 are just past calls, and 4 are just basically something that could sit on the board, patrol calls and stuff like that. So out of that, so for 23 priority 1 calls, we'll break this down into 2. So there's 2 different ways of looking at this. The time from when somebody calls 911, they relay their information to the dispatcher. The dispatcher then gives that information to the deputy. That is the most important one. That's the critical time from the time of the call to the time of the response. The other one is important as well, but that is the time dispatched to the time arrived. So you can see priority 1 for receipt to arrival, you're at 7.73 minutes for priority 1s, and you're at 24:31 for priority 2s. And then actual from dispatch to arrival, priority 1s are 6.58, priority 2s are 13.05. For traffic collisions for 2023, you had 2 fatals. You had 0 fatals last year, or in 2022. Out of that, you had 20 injuries, 11 non-injuries, and you had 8 hit and runs. And then for our flock cameras, so the city has flock cameras, they're automated license plate readers. We had 22,037 reads per day on average. On average, we get about 46 alerts. Out of that, we got 4 arrests and then 9 further investigations. And then just some community outreach stuff, the National Night Out when we had it here, 9/11 Memorial. And then just remembering our fallen, Deputy Darnell Calhoun. That has all our information if you need to get a hold of us. And with that, any questions, let me know.
I have questions.
Shoot.
Okay. So for the average, I'm looking at your page 5.
Okay.
The 24 supported hours per day.
Yep.
Looking at invoices that we've got over the last couple of months, it looks like we pay $209.35. Is that what that's what the fully burdened rate is for us?
The rate per hour?
Yes.
I'd have to go back and look at the actual rate.
Okay. It looks consistent on bills, so if that's what it is that what it is?
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yep.
The CBAT officer, is that billed as an investigations for, if they come to Canyon, like you said, 36 times, is that billed as investigator overtime?
No,
Okay, that's part of the
That's
patrol officer?
part of the contract, yep.
Okay. The change in response time for priority 1 and 2, that's just because they're coming from Lake Elsinore? Or is it just from wherever they're?
It actually just depends on where they're at in relation to the call at the time. So
Okay.
that could vary.
Gotcha. So on some of our invoices, we're being billed for community service officers and motor differential. Is that part of our contract too, or is that when they're responding to traffic collisions or what?
So if they come out and they shoot one of the fatals, so you had, I believe it was 4 major traffic collisions. They came out and they shot it, so yes, they're charged. That's an additional charge
Okay.
for those traffic services.
So,
And that includes the CSO.
okay, so when I see like 3 hours or 13 hours or 10 hours for the month, that would be because of traffic collisions?
It could be additional services, so depending on what happened at the time or what call, say there's a call that requires a response of 4 or 5 deputies, then anything above the 15-minute mark, you're going to get billed for that. So your baseline is that 24.
So, but for the motor differential, that's going to be for collisions. That's not going to be because we have a motor officer.
You do not have a motor, correct? Yep. That's them coming in to support a traffic collision in the city.
Got it. What is your suggestion on trying to keep costs down for Canyon Lake? I'm looking at some bills here, and we have a difference of like $16,000 per month. I mean, obviously, we have no control over overtime, and that's in response to calls, but
Right.
what would your recommendation be for those of us on the finance committee? It's kind of hard to have one bill that's, you know, in the 145,000 mark, and then the next bill is 165,000. Like, how do we plan for that? What can we do?
So a lot of the stuff that we do is you can't really plan for it because you don't know what's going to take place in the community. Oddly enough, I would say that maybe by paying for an additional staff member, it would cut some of those costs because you would have another supported deputy in the community.
But wouldn't we be paying for all of the portions of the supported deputy? Aren't we getting it cheaper when we were having overtime because we're not paying for that fully supported, fully burdened deputy?
Well, so it depends on the way that we break down the contract hours. We did propose something to the city manager of having a community services deputy. That's an unsupported rate. It's at a lower rate, but they can augment the patrol service and actually do community outreach and target specific stuff within the community.
But that was hundreds of thousands of dollars for that individual,
You know what, I'm sorry, I didn't bring any of the actuals of what the costs are, but I can get it for you
I think it was approximately 230,000, somewhere around there.
for the year.
Yeah, but we're on track for 1.9 right now. Okay.
Can I just add on just a little bit in addition to what Councilmember Castillo said? I am also on the Finance Committee, and the questions that come up when we get the bills that have more than what was originally billed for, is there a way to go back? Can we get details behind those extra charges? Is there someone that we can go to get all the specific details of who was there and what they were investigating and what, those kind of things?
Yes, so everything is based off of a file number, so depending on what that file number is, I could tell you what was billed for that file. So
Okay.
that information is available.
I think it might be helpful to be able to sit down and do a more deep dive on some of these charges so we can understand where they're coming from.
Sure.
I've, to piggyback on that question, on your page 6 for the patrol operations, you have total calls for service 4664. Is that calls for service, or are those the?
Files generated.
Okay, so, and files generated are deputies going to a location and pulling a file?
They could be traffic stops, flag downs, traffic collisions, people calling 911. That is all inclusive of every file that we pull that represents what we do in Canyon Lake.
Do we know the number of phone calls?
I don't. So the way that our CAD system's set up is it has to be hand sorted on what's actually called in versus what's generated. The calls for service report, the way that we extract the data from our system, it's considered a calls for service report. That's where that comes from.
Yeah.
And so that just gives us every file that's generated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lieutenant, real quick.
Yeah.
Do we know, do we have an idea of, I think we talked about this last council meeting. I think we were averaging 4 or 6. Does that sound about right on 911 calls per day in Canyon Lake? Just trying to get.
That month that we, you know what, I have to go back and look.
Okay.
But I did sort a month, and
Yeah.
there is a portion of it that are 911s. I mean, it would be hard for me to break down every type of call because we have
Right.
a vast amount of calls, right?
Right.
I mean, so from traffic collisions to neighbor disputes to child abuse stuff to I can't get along with my wife, and now we have, child abduction calls, and so there's so many different calls. It's hard to really break it down, but that's kind of what you deal with in the community.
Yeah. We're just trying to get our heads around, because you brought up some good options, community officer, another deputy, that kind of things. And we're just trying to get our heads around how many times we're calling 911. You know, we're trying to reach out to you. Obviously, you guys are out in the field too, so you're seeing stuff as it's happening too, and it's just different. But I'm just curious on what that number, if we can look into it and see if we can.
I would say that if you look, because I monitor our CAD system every day, right? So I know what's going on in the city. So on average, you're probably looking at 6 to 8 calls that we actually receive from Canyon Lake residents. And then you probably have another 4 to 6 that could be self-generated depending on traffic enforcement. Are they checking parks, community, business checks, stuff like that? So it's probably a good ratio. You're probably in that 70-30, 75-25.
Perfect.
I would say that's reasonable.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Canyon Lake, City of Canyon Lake Fire Department, Chief Latendress.
Good evening, Jeff Latendress, your fire chief. I'm here tonight to present our monthly statistics for the month of February. So for the month of February, we had what's going to probably be known as our quietest month. We only had 67 emergency responses. Of those emergency responses, we had 1 structure fire, we had 47 medical aids, we had 1 hazardous condition, we had 8 service calls, 6 good intent calls, and then 4 false alarms for our 67 total emergency responses. Our 1 structure fire occurred on February 1st. It was in the 22,600 block of Pintail. Upon arrival of our first-in engine company, we found that there was smoke coming from the garage. We forced entry into the garage area. We found a trash can and some construction materials that had been ignited inside. There was smoke damage throughout the building. Most of the damage from the fire was confined just to the garage, but we had assistance from CAL FIRE on that incident, and the cause of it was contractors that had discarded some hot materials into the trash can that was in the garage. So this is a little different for us. Normally we see our early morning hours as being the slower time, and then our afternoon into evening hours being the more active time. This one we saw a lot of activity in the early morning and then in the later morning and early day. So again, we just monitor this. We try to plan our activities around when we can anticipate having an emergency response, and this month was a little bit different for us. I like to point out that, just again, that we did have 1 response to the fire station where someone came to the fire station with a medical emergency during the month of February, and most of our emergency responses obviously are in single-family dwellings. This is the location of where all of our calls happen for the month of February inside Canyon Lake, so it gives us a good idea of where they're at. Most of them were along the East Bay area this time on both sides of the lake. Our response time, it was one of our best months for response times too. Our turnout time on average was 49 seconds. Our travel time was 5 minutes, 19 seconds for an overall average response time of 6 minutes and 7 seconds. What we really like to pay closer attention to is what are we doing 90% of the time versus what we're doing on average, or 50% of the time. So 90% of the time, our turnout time was 1 minute 19 seconds. Our travel time was 7 minutes 2 seconds, and our total response time was 8 minutes and 10 seconds. So again, our department goal of 1 minute 45 for our turnout time, we're nailing that one. We can't control, as the lieutenant said, where we are in relation to where the call is. That's our travel time, and the 2 added together give us our total response time. So automatic and mutual aids, during the month of February, we responded to five incidents outside the city. 4 of those were in the Lake Elsinore zip code area, and 1 was in the Menifee zip code area. So thus far this year, for the 2 months, we've had a total of 17 automatic aid or mutual aid responses into Lake Elsinore and 2 into Menifee. And this just gives you a location of where those incidents were. The green clouds are where the ones were in the Lake Elsinore area. And if you look at it, 2 of them are truly in the city proper of Lake Elsinore, and 2 of them were in the Meadowbrook area, and then finally the one in Menifee. And then this is a detailed map showing year-to-date of where we've gone outside the city. There's been a total of 19 responses, and so it's just a spattering throughout the area there. Riverside County, on the other hand, came in 6 times, so they had more responses into our community during the month of February. There's been a total of 17 responses that they've come into the city so far this year. And this is the location where Riverside County has come in to assist us on medical aids or other types of calls, one of them being the structure fire on Pintail. Our training hours, our quote for this month was, "I never regret when I do it, but I always regret when I don't do it." So that's our motivation. The A shift had 30 hours, year-to-date 179 hours. The B shift had 38 hours for a total of 188 hours. And the C shift had 38 hours for a total of 229 hours. Our focus this month was personal protective clothing training, not just on how to don and doff it or put it on and put it off, but there are some new state requirements on the care and maintenance of the protective clothing, so we went through all that. We brought in an outside contractor to teach our personnel child abuse recognition and notification processes. We worked with the City of Corona Fire Department, and they came down for 3 different days, free of charge, and trained our firefighters on what we call ventilation or vertical ventilation, cutting holes into a roof to let the heat, smoke, and gases out so our firefighters can make entry. We worked on forcible entry, ladders. We brought on 2 limited-term firefighters, so we put them through an orientation academy. And then we did our quarterly RHEART training, or that's our CPR, Advanced Cardiac Life Support training, and then finally some hose evolution and management. Public education and community outreach, we taught at the earthquake preparedness, or the emergency preparedness committee. We taught them stop the bleed, or how to control a significant injury in times of a disaster. We made a presentation to a large turnout at the country club, to the women's club, on heart and stroke safety. We went to a neighborhood watch meeting with the RSO and gave a presentation on home fire safety. And then we gave a presentation to the senior center on fire safety and exiting. Significant event, this was a little bit different for us. We had our winter storm that kind of came through on the 2nd through the 6th of February. We had significant rainfall, not just in Canyon Lake, but we have to think about, as Darcy likes to talk about, our watershed area and the water coming in. It's come out all the way in from San Jacinto. So when it's raining up in Idlewild, that rain will eventually make it down to us. So heavy rain there impacts us. And this storm ended up closing the North Causeway. And so it's the 2nd time since we've been a fire department that the causeway's been closed. We were evaluating it, we were watching it, we were monitoring it. We still had emergency access, but in preparation, if we did lose emergency access, we brought in Chief Samuels. He stayed the night. We hired back 2 personnel and staffed our patrol. We were prepared to put the patrol on the other side of the lake, so we had fire resources on both sides. And we, as a result of this, have prepared a storm operations plan so that when this happens again, we'll be a little bit better prepared and respond. We had to order additional sand for this storm, and so we pretty much have gone through all that sand again. So, and we again got free sandbags from Riverside County Emergency Management Department. So just some of the preparations and lesson learned as we're still going through and learning different events here in the community. Testing and maintenance month, we have a lot of mandates. So during the month of February, we went through and tested all of our auto extrication equipment, all of our air compressors, all of our air packs, our firefighters and their breathing masks were tested. We had to go through and test our, what we call our N95 mask. We have to contract with all these third-party verification of everything. This month, we're working on pump testing, so it's just getting through all those regulatory requirements that we have to do as a fire department. And that's my presentation for February. If you have any questions, I'm available for you. Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Busy month. I just stopped the bleed, was great. Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Okay, we're now going to go to our public comment time. City Clerk, do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
Mayor, we have one speaker tonight, John Zeitz.
John, we have our 3-minute warning, and please go ahead and begin.
I'm really pleased that the city finally did an engineering and traffic survey for Railroad Canyon Road. Now the RSO can enforce the speed laws with the use of radar, so Railroad Canyon Road will no longer be a speed trap. The only problem I have with the proposal is that Wildan, possibly in collusion with the city, has tried to maintain the speed limit at 45 miles an hour. The 85 percentile speed is 54 miles per hour, and the 10-mile-an-hour pace is 45 to 54, and 80% of the people are in that pace. Wildan is using Vehicle Code Section 22358.8 as part of the reason, but in the code, that section says, to restore the immediately prior adopted speed limit at that speed limit, if that speed limit was established with an engineering and traffic safety survey, and if the registered engineer has evaluated the section of highway and determined that no additional general purpose lanes have been added to the roadway since completion of the traffic survey that established the speed limit. There are no records of any prior surveys, so Wildan cannot use that as a precedent. But as we all well know, that in 2012, the road was widened to a 3-lane road. Speed prior to that was 45 miles an hour. And just as I read, that part of the consideration is that no additional general purpose lanes have been added to the roadway. But there were lanes added to the roadway. To use the fact that it's going to be a public safety corridor does not fly, because one of two things must apply. And that must be more than 1/5 of the roads in the city of Canyon Lake. And as we know, your survey says 1.48. That's 100% of the roads in Canyon Lake. So you can't say that the private roads of 25 miles is part of that. So that one doesn't apply. Or two, that there is a concentration of bicyclists or pedestrians, especially from those vulnerable groups such as children, seniors, persons with disabilities, and the unhoused. Therefore, it cannot be a safety corridor according to section 22358.7. So what is this all about? When we get to the agenda, I will be talking about the golf carts. And it's all about the city wanting to maintain a 45-mile-an-hour street regardless of anything else. I want to thank Lieutenant Ed Williams of the RSO for all he has done to force the city to use this stage. And force us to this stage. And I'm hopeful that since the RSO has the final say on the golf carts, not the council, the results will be meaningful. And when we get to that point, I've got a presentation, and it's going to be very fast, but I hope that we get through what's the problem, because there are ways to fix it, but not what was given to you by Wildan.
Thank you, John. No other public comments? Let's have council comments. Casey, would you like to start?
Sure. I was able to go with you to a neighborhood watch meeting on Old Wrangler that was initiated by the Security Advisory Committee. Captain Willis came, and so did firefighter Nunez, I believe. I thought it was a great meeting with the community of that street. I'm hopeful that that kind of takes off because it was very informative. There was also, I believe his name was Deputy Sanchez, who attended. It was nice to see neighbors looking out for neighbors, and I think that's really very important. We have a lot of things that we're looking forward to on the horizon in terms of city events. I'm excited about that as well. I know you're going to talk about some of that. But ultimately, I think we're moving forward in a good direction, and I'm pleased.
Okay, all good? Jen, would you like to provide?
Am I going to have something, or do you want me to start talking first?
There you go.
We are getting ready for our annual scholarship award. It's opening next week for the applicants. So please, if you are a graduating senior watching this, or a parent of a graduating senior, please look for the information. You can see it on our website, and we'll have it on social media as far as our scholarship award. We're also going to be doing some promotion to try to get as many applicants as possible. The other thing that we are looking for are volunteers. We've had a number of people that have already signed up, and a lot of that we've done for the last 2 years. One of the major volunteer works that we did were all the flags in the yards for Memorial Day. So we're trying to have something that's a little even more organized than we had last year, and have an ongoing list of available volunteers. And this can be volunteers in the community that want to sign up, and it can also be volunteers in schools that are looking for community services credit, and just help with any of the events that we have. And we have, I know she's trying to show me, but how many people have already signed up? Okay, so we have got 22 people signed up. We're going to continue to ask for additional volunteers. So if you're interested, please sign up. And additionally, I just have a couple things. We did have a articulation committee meeting last week with the Lake Elsinore Unified School District, and it's very exciting to be able to meet with them and move forward together and come up with ideas on things that benefit our students, and to find out the kind of amazing things that the Lake Elsinore School District is doing. I also attended a Southwest, whatever the new name is, the Southwest Riverside Higher Education Coalition meeting. We had another huge turnout of people, and for those of you that don't know, we're working on trying to get, number one, some additional funding for the Cal State San Marcos, a area that's going to be based in Temecula, but to have our graduating seniors and people that are going on for higher education to be able to have someplace closer where they can still get their bachelor's degree, and very targeted in areas that are critical to our region: healthcare, nursing, business, software engineering, those types of things that are critical to keep our talent here in Southwest Riverside County. So it's exciting the steps we're taking along that route. And also had another Student of the Month award ceremony last week, and as always, it's my favorite thing to do. So it's exciting to see the youth in our community and what we have to draw from.
I'll be brief. I know we have a long night. I just want to make a comment. If you did not know, Brian Nastandi passed away last week. He was a former assemblyman for the Palm Desert area into Hemet. Had the opportunity of knowing him for the last 15 years. Worked with him when he ran for Congress. So I would just ask that we adjourn our meeting to his memory tonight, and that's it.
This month I attended both RCA and WRCOG. Back in December, the board of directors had basically changed hands on the executive committee. The former chair was Natasha Johnson from the city of Lake Elsinore, and the new chair is Kevin Bash from the city of Norco. And I know him very well. I think he's very capable and is going to do a great job leading us up into the next year. For all those residents who are conservationists, following the February 16th deadline, which is the limit to introduce new legislation, the legislature will now turn its focus to holding committee hearings. As previously reported, the governor's budget proposal largely left a lot of that funding alone. But however, there is a potential that the governor now wants to pull back about $15.7 million to wildlife conservation. And as a result, RCA staff, together with the California Habitat Conservation Planning Coalition, traveled to Sacramento this week to speak with legislatures, state senators, and see if there's a way to protect that funding. Attended the monthly business roundtable with the Chamber of Commerce. It was a very, very interesting meeting. Chief Eldard and Major Pham of the United States Air Force Reserve were our speakers. And at first, I had absolutely no idea how this related to business, but as Councilwoman Dane will attest to, it was really a fascinating conversation. And I would say this, there are really two ways that you can help. One, if you are a business owner, did you remember, I did not write down the name of the program, but I thought it was a fascinating program. SkillBridge. And its intent is to take the reservist as they retire and give you as a business owner an opportunity to hire them at no cost. And kind of like a test drive for what? For 6 months. So I think that's a noble and a great program, an opportunity for not only you to bring on somebody and give them an opportunity, and it's also a great opportunity for them because as Chief Eldard said, who is retiring after 26 years of service, he's kind of wondering what he's going to do after he retires. So I think if our residents can keep that in mind and our business owners can help, that would be great. The second side of that is they're short-staffed. So if you are of age, below the ages of 42, you can become a reservist. And at March Air Force Base right now, they do have vacancies that they are desperately trying to fill. We had Canyon Lake Family Golf had their spring kickoff tournament, which was a great success. I think one of the largest tournaments that Family Golf has ever had. I would like to also thank Joel Farnham, who I'm still not sure if he's actually been appointed the president, but he's been taking on those duties, and he and the volunteers did a great job. It was a beautiful day and a great event. And lastly, I couldn't attend the entire event, but I was able to stop by the Canyon Lake Mermaid St. Patrick's Casino night, and if I could have gotten there earlier, I would have. It was a great night, a very successful night, and Wayne from the Urban Eatery actually catered the food, and it was brilliant. So, and that's it.
Thank you. I'll cover a couple of items. I'll try to be quick. One is that the Lake Elsinore Watershed Authority is going to have a water summit, and that's going to be Tuesday, April 30th, 2024, from 8 to 1. I encourage the POA board possibly attend, or anyone else that's interested. What Leisure does is they're the ones that put the alum in our lake every 2 years. They're the ones that keep the algae from growing. And so they also do have huge input into keeping Lake Elsinore swimmable. So there will be people, some scientists, some engineers, and they will describe the ongoing process to keep our lake safe to swim in and safe to drink. So that will be interesting. Also, I went to SCAG. I don't know if we could throw the SCAG. There it is. Our SCAG meeting, we moved the Connect Southern California 2024 plan ahead. That's basically kind of an overview of how transportation's going to hopefully look in the whole Southern California area for the next 4 to 20 years. So next month, I'm probably going to dig into some slides with Parker. Parker is our intern here, and he's going to help us, and we're going to discuss and give you the overview of the plan itself. So, That's about all I'm going to cover tonight because I think we have a lot to do. So we'll go ahead and move on to consent agenda. Do I have any requests from council to pull any of the consent agenda items?
Yes, number 7, please.
Number 7. Any other items will need to be pulled?
I'm going to recuse myself on item 5, so I'll make the motion that we move forward with items 1, 2, 3, and 4, and let's see here, she pulled 7, so 6.
Councilmember, another, you can make a motion to approve the consent calendar, including 5, just noting your recusal.
Perfect, I'll do that.
I think we have the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll go ahead. Do you want to recluse or just want to not vote? That's basically what you're
No, I
saying.
can actually stay here and just not, it's for the record that I recuse on item 5.
So,
Okay.
Mayor, for consent calendar recusals, the council members are not required to leave the room.
Okay, and there's basically no discussion, so.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Aye.
Mayor Welty?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we've had a request to pull item 7. Casey, what would you like to say?
Okay, so we had a very, I want to say, long discussion for the goals at our workshop. And I guess I have a couple comments and maybe a question. So the discussion of this item indicates that these proposed goals are short-term and long-term, with short-term goals being 1 to 2 years and long-term goals being 3 to 5. My recollection of our conversation was that we were moving public safety from a long-term goal to a short-term goal. And additionally, I think I'm confused how, if these are goals for 2024, they would have timeframes beyond a year.
I'm happy to answer that. What we've done this year, this is new, right, for the council to do short-term and long-term. And what we tried to do is in the goal description, the words at the beginning will say like begin or create. Those are distinctive of what we can do in the year. But obviously to tackle law enforcement completely, it's not going to take 1 year to probably get to the finish line. So when we say 3 to 5 years, the intent is that we will strive to fully accomplish that in 3 to 5 years. What we found in looking back at the last several years is you have repetitive goals just reworded in different ways. And so instead of doing that, the hope was to remain committed that this is going to be something that we will strive to do over the next several years as a priority. But of course, this is proposed, and so we're happy to make any changes that the council wishes for us to make.
Well, for public safety specifically, it says explore. So I don't see how that would be a 2024 goal then, if we're setting this out with an exploration for a time period of 3 to 5 years. My recollection of our meeting was very specific direction as to what we wanted accomplished in a short period. I don't think this document, this proposed goals document, has been edited to reflect our actual discussion. It looks like the same document.
Do you have a recommendation on a specific?
Well, I sat
item?
there for 4 hours and gave a recommendation.
So one of the things that we were going to do is create an action plan that outlines some of the key initiatives that go under each of these, but if we want a more direct statement, we're more than happy to go back and look at them and the notes. I think for public safety, I guess, the conversation went around exploring opportunities for new agreements with new cities. We're happy to make that more specific if you'd like.
I literally don't see any of our discussion reflected in this form.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would agree with, Councilwoman Casey Castillo in regards to, the discussion that took place in our workshop. I would make a suggestion that we table this particular item to come back and have staff kind of do some of the revisions and look back at some of the notes that took place in that very long 4-hour workshop that we did, where we came together and created some very cohesive decisions on what we want to do moving forward, especially in the short term. If you're okay with that, Councilwoman Casey Castillo, I think a lot of work needs to be done on it.
Right, I mean, I'm not going to make a motion to approve this.
Yeah.
so-
We have a motion to table?
Yeah, to move it to next month.
So, Mayor, perhaps the motion would be to continue it to next month.
Yeah.
We have a motion to continue this to next month.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second? Yes.
The initial motion,
I did.
please. Okay.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Terry seconded it.
Any other conversation? Any public comment? Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Aye.
Mayor Welty?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving to item number 8, we're going to have a public hearing. We'll go ahead and announce that the public hearing is now open at 7:48. We have a presentation by City Attorney Graham.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We briefly discussed this at the last council meeting, so I'm not going to be unnecessarily repetitive. I know we have other items on the agenda, and we have items to finish in closed session. The short version is this: the city council and city staff have endeavored to keep our accessory dwelling unit ordinance up to date with the ever-changing requirements coming from the legislature of the state. We are assisted in that process by the Department of Housing and Community Development, who sent a letter to the city giving us guidance on changes that they think would be appropriate in order to bring the city into full compliance with the requirements of accessory dwelling unit law. City staff reviewed that. We've gone through the ordinance, my office, planning with Jim, the city manager's office, to ensure that we're making the changes necessary. We've already informed HCD that we were bringing it forward at this meeting. There's no substantive changes, really, from staff's perspective. We felt that HCD was perhaps being overly technical. However, it is a state department full of planners. It's their job to be very technical. And all the changes would simply bring us into compliance with state law. These are not discretionary acts where frankly, the city council has a lot of wiggle room. So staff's recommendation is to conduct the public hearing, hear any testimony that is necessary, and to introduce and have the first reading of the ordinance.
Any city council members have any questions for the staff?
Nope.
No questions from the council? Testimony by proponents? Testimony by opponents? Response by proponents? None? We're going to close the public hearing at 7:51. Is there any additional discussion by city council? My only comment is, looks like we're just going to put the state law into our code. Is that essentially what we're doing?
That is what the state has requested that we do.
Okay, no other discussion. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Aye.
Mayor Welty?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to item number 9. People are excited out there for this one. 9 will be the discussion regarding the draft golf cart crossing traffic safety study and the engineering and traffic study for Railroad Canyon Road. Presentation by Manager Daly and Wildan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a quick presentation. Hopefully this works. There we go. So the recommendation before you tonight is to review and discuss the draft golf cart crossing traffic safety study and engineering and traffic study for Railroad Canyon Road. Just some background, which I think most of us are aware of. Last year, the Riverside County Sheriff's Office, Lake Elsinore Station, was awarded an Office of Traffic Safety grant for the city of Canyon Lake. This was done after a significant number of DUI-related traffic collisions within our community, and as a result, we were granted funds for the first time, I think, in the city's history. And by doing that, the grant is focused on driving under the influence. So on Friday, December 8th, 2023, from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., RSO conducted the first of 4 saturation patrols that were planned as part of this grant. And there's also a DUI checkpoint plan as part of this grant. This grant was submitted by RSO. So traffic units are required during the use of these funds to take a zero-tolerance approach to any traffic-related violations along Railroad Canyon Road. The golf cart crossing currently is not compliant with city and state laws, unbeknownst to us. So we were not aware of the saturation patrol, and I think for quite some time, the city probably hasn't looked at its municipal code related to the golf cart crossing, as well as vehicle codes have changed since then. And so currently, based on existing laws, it is not compliant for our community to be crossing at Canyon Lake Drive South to the town center across Railroad Canyon in the vehicle lanes. This saturation patrol resulted in 33 traffic stops. 4 drivers were arrested for a DUI out of the 22 or the 33 stops. Of those, 10 were golf cart stops, but no golf carts were actually cited, and there were 23 citations. Instead of giving citations for the golf carts, those that were driving golf carts were just educated about the existing vehicle codes. From this, the city met with the city attorney and staff, and RSO have met. We've been taking a closer look at exactly what the city does have in terms of regulations associated with the golf cart crossing, as well as the California Vehicle Code. And currently, we have Chapter 12.08 of the Canyon Lake Municipal Code, which requires that golf carts cross in the same manner as pedestrian traffic in the area designated for such crossing. And there are restrictions with nighttime crossing. So essentially, golf carts would have to cross in the crosswalk and push the accentuator, which is not how people currently cross here, and also problematic in terms of being able to do so. But something to note here is the municipal code was actually adopted in 1992. It was then updated in 1995, and as was previously shared tonight, Railroad Canyon Road has changed substantially since then, and so has the California Vehicle Code. So it is out of date. Again, so the last few months, we've really spent some time trying to understand a path forward that meets the needs of our community while also being compliant and having, of course, a safe golf cart crossing for our community. According to California Vehicle Code Section 21115.1, I think that's right. The city may establish crossing zones for use of golf carts at any time other than during darkness on any street other than a state highway if it is adjacent to a golf course. This does, though, require review of a safety plan by RSO. Actions that we've taken by the city since this has all began. Obviously, we know that Railroad Canyon Road is a critically important road for our community. We have a lot of safety concerns along that roadway and have for some time, a lot of speeding issues as well. So the city commissioned a study for golf carts and enforceable speed limits, or as we mentioned, a golf cart crossing traffic safety study and an engineering and traffic survey for Railroad Canyon Road. We reached out to both Interwest and Wildan. We've selected Wildan to move forward on this study. There was legislation recently passed, AB 43, which does allow for safety corridor designations that can further reduce speed survey findings when establishing a speed limit for a roadway. And this was something else that we realized in this process of researching what we could do to address the concerns on Railroad Canyon Road and with the golf cart crossing. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Steve Liebring, who is here with us from Wildan, and he's going to share some information about their findings.
So we conduct, is this on? Is this on? There we go, sorry. So we conducted a survey, as you can see up there, the 85th percentile, which is generally the rules that the speed limits have been set by for the last, dozens of decades here. Allows for that to be posted at 50 miles an hour. But we're trying to use and look at, investigate, and nobody's an expert on this yet. You know, it hasn't been done yet. It's not in law, but there's many speculations on how it'll play out. The new law that's going to allow for possibly a 5 mile an hour further reduction in that. So basically it would be to try to qualify this street as a safety corridor with the state of California. And so if that's the case, then we could have an enforceable 45 mile type of limit. And so we are here to help out with the city, the RSO, the council, you know, attorneys, everybody, to try to work together to see what we can come up with. Next slide. We did observe golf cart behavior. I've lived here for over 40 years. You know, I've seen many a golf cart. And, you know, we understand what they're doing. You know, they want to come over and support the businesses and stuff like that. So, but we want them to be safe. And so we agree with all that. And so we've tried to identify as best we can some signs and some markings and things like that will help guide them to be in the right place and get across the street safely. We've also evaluated and considered that, you know, we can maybe even post signs and educate through an outreach type of program, you know, that no lights, you know, cross, you know, that kind of stuff like that. And that, so, but our focus is definitely on ensuring, you know, golf cart safety at this location. These are just some suggested things just to get the conversation started. We're not married to the wording exactly or anything like that, but just as the kind of thing that, you know, we want to reference to the golf cart users so that they stay in line with what would be a safer practice in that. So whether we word it exactly that way or we figure out how to word the signs, you know, like that. We want to be short and concise, but still fully educate the public and what the needs are, you know, and refer to the municipal code chapters, et cetera. Next thing. This is a little tough to read, but in essence what it says is that, you know, golf carts would use the center lane to cross straight across. And there'll be Shero type markings and signage to guide them to that lane. And so it's just basically just kind of showing a conceptual of how it could be. You know, there's other ways it can be done, you know, type of thing like that, but this is just kind of get the conversation started. And that's where we've highlighted that is the lane that the carts would cross over into initially to get across the signal. Do you want the rest?
Sure. Thank you, Steve. So both studies are currently a draft. Again, tonight's item is a discussion on the studies to date. The engineering and traffic study will provide an enforceable speed limit for Canyon Lake for the first time in 10 years. As mentioned, we are optimistic about the safety corridor designation based on our understanding of the legislation. The study was written to reflect the requirements of that legislation, but we do still have to apply for and be granted that designation. RSO is currently reviewing both studies and providing feedback based on these findings that have been suggested. Our city attorney will be working with them as well. The captain and lieutenant have done an initial look and provided some feedback to us. And ultimately, county council will be making some decisions on that as well. After we've received that feedback, ideally, we would like to bring forward next month proposed ordinance amendments to both our golf cart crossing as well as speed limits. If possible next month, and then we would bring those obviously for second reading the following month, and ultimately seek that safety corridor designation sometime after July 1st. As an important reminder to our community, under this grant, there are still 3 additional saturation patrols and a DUI checkpoint this year, and the city is fully committed to trying to find a solution that best meets the needs of the community, while also obviously being in line with the law and supported by RSO. But in the meantime, I would say if you're thinking about crossing the road, do so at your own risk, because currently we do not have the rules and regulations in place to back and support that yet. Unless you have a street legal golf cart, you can cross as often as you wish right now. We will plan to do education outreach materials based on our final determination, again, which we hope to bring forward next month. And some key messages we can include are listed on the screen here. Really just trying to inform our community of key provisions that they can take to try to be safe when they're crossing this very busy and sometimes high-speed roadway. I'll say, you know, for the short amount of time I've been here in the last year, there's been significant accidents, a fatality of a bicyclist on Railroad Canyon Road. It is a dangerous roadway. We recognize that the speed, if people are driving 54 with the number of signals that we also have AMR leaving the town center, it's dangerous. And so keeping the speed limit lower it would be an amazing blessing to us to ensure the safety of those driving through our community. So, and especially to our residents who are the ones turning in and out of our community as people just travel through as quickly as they wish. So that concludes our presentation, but both Steve and I are here for any feedback you have. Again, this is a review and discuss. There's no motion necessary or a vote, but we welcome any feedback you may have.
Any questions by the council?
I have a comment. I want to say thank you very much. This is a important issue for our residents. I get feedback all the time that the council needs to address this and make it legal. And so taking these steps are important. I think it's a priority. It's central to the Canyon Lake way of life, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that our first job is public safety. So where we can meet in the middle on that would be ideal. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Have we had any initial discussions with RSO regarding this plan?
We have. One significant request, obviously, was no night crossings, which the city and attorney and I both felt that was an adequate request because even the California Vehicle Code, they're a lot longer than I show on the screen, but even when we look closely at that, there's not a lot of options to overcome night crossing, and it's dangerous. It is dangerous. I think that we're really waiting for county council. They're going to be the ultimate decision makers on this, but overall, we've gotten positive feedback from RSO.
As of today, it is illegal to cross across Railroad Canyon even during the day. Is that correct?
If you are not in a street legal golf cart, correct.
You made a comment, or you said in your presentation, because this was brought up by a resident, clarify pushing the crosswalk button. You said that earlier, I believe.
Right. So based on our current municipal code, it says you're to cross in the same pattern or manner that you would if you were to cross walking across Railroad Canyon Road, which would be pushing the button.
But that is not in the future of the direction that we are taking, that is not a consideration.
Correct. So based on the study provided by Wildan, they're specifying that we could cross with vehicle traffic in those middle lanes under the normal traffic patterns.
So what is the timeline that we're looking at in regards to, let's say we want to get to the point where our residents could cross across Railroad Canyon during the day?
I think that's going to be determined based on RSO's feedback and county council's feedback. Bringing the ordinance forward, obviously, next month, if we were able to, with amendments, essentially shows that we're planning to change the municipal code. Whether RSO is willing to, say that's adequate for them, that's probably going to be up to RSO. But ultimately, our ordinances take effect after second reading 30 days.
Did we not have a conversation, I believe it was last week, where you had made mention that RSO is somewhat receptive based off of?
Right.
Okay.
Jen?
I just had one question, and I can't find it in here, but there was, it may just be in the, kind of the start of this where we want to make sure that people are safe coming across, but have there been any incidents of golf carts being hit by cars going across Railroad Canyon?
We don't have that.
I don't know if there's a time period, but.
Not that we know of. It's difficult, I think. I don't know if RSO would be able to provide that, but there's not been any documentation of that provided to us or that I'm aware of.
I'd like to comment that we've had a handful of deaths on Railroad Canyon, a lot of them pedestrians coming across. I drive out and I see the little kids on bikes going across the street to get into the center. That's not unusual. While they are mostly focused in the center, sometimes they like to go up and get a Coke or ice cream or something. So we do see the little ones. a lot of the kids across are, 14, 15, they go across fairly often that I can see. So I live by the gate, so I see a lot of it, and I'm sure you pay a lot of attention. So I guess my question, Steve, is you're going to move ahead with this application for Safe Streets, that when you're not really waiting for anything, you're just putting the information to get the application, or are you waiting for us to take action?
We're not sure the application's available yet, so as soon as it's available, yeah, we could then pursue it with you.
And one more comment, I think, is that the decision in this, what exactly we do is not totally by any means in the hands of the council. It's going through the hands of the state, it's going through the hands of the county, it's going through the hands of the sheriff. So there's a lot of people looking at this. Obviously, we would like our people to cross their golf carts safely across the street. That's our goal. I guess that brings in, is there anything we can do with the lighting of the lane changes, or maybe we get flashing lights saying golf cart crossing? We're looking at all that, I take it, if I know you, Steve.
We'll see if there's a magic device that we can come up with.
Make it flash, okay?
I would, again, Mayor? Yes. I would also encourage us to educate our general public on street legal. I had a conversation regarding what it takes to have a street legal golf cart. I was surprised at how, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's very doable. There's very simple things that our residents can do to transition their existing golf cart into a street legal golf cart. And it's my understanding that it wouldn't really be, it's a good alternative. And I would encourage us as a city to educate our residents on perhaps what that process is. I think we've got a guy in the room who could probably help us out a good deal with that type of information and the process that it would take. Lastly, I'd like to say that I am in agreement that when you take golf carts out of it, Canyon Lake has greatly increased the amount of traffic that is traveling down Railroad Canyon. Often when I leave early, there are excessive speeds, sometimes 60, 70 miles an hour going up and down Railroad Canyon. I have seen, I was at the golf course the day that there was a DUI, or he was under the influence, collided with ran a red light, collided with a car, and unfortunately that young lady died. I, without a doubt, want to see that our residents, with the increased amount of traffic, do have a safety corridor or anything that we can do to protect them. I also saw that there were some stats that you had put together regarding, and once again, like Jen said, I thought I highlighted them, in regards to the number of accidents and fatalities. That number, how does that number compare to other studies that you've done? Is that a high number? Is it a pretty common, not common, but what's the word? Is that a higher number than what you typically see on a street such as Railroad Canyon? And I apologize that I didn't highlight it.
It's okay. The study that you're referring to was one that you had done previously.
Correct.
With another engineers, and their data basically showed that while maybe not the overall accident rate or something like that on that street is overly high, the concentration of accidents at Canyon Lake South was, that was a concern for them that they pointed out. So it fits right into what we're trying to do here.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, no other questions. We'll go ahead and let the public comments come forward. I hope we get a couple on this. We'd like to hear from you.
Mayor, we have one public comment tonight. John Zeitz.
In order to solve a problem, you need to understand what the problem is. I'm going to go very fast through this.
problem that we had is we had lots of citations up until the road was fixed in 2012, and you could see the number of citations that tailed off at that point. Railroad Canyon Road is a speed trap. We know that. Why did we go for 12 years without a speed study? It's basically because the city council did not want to have golf carts not cross Railroad Canyon Road at night. The vehicle code, as I see it in the book, is not exactly what was showed earlier, because the city only took a part of that information, and the city council only considered the establishment of the zones for golf carts on any street other than a highway with a posted speed limit of 45 miles per hour. That was what was wrong with yours. That is why the city council did not do a speed study for years, because they didn't want to enact that problem. If you did a speed survey, maybe 50 miles an hour, then golf carts couldn't go across it. But the RSOs know that this is that situation. When I talked to the captain many years ago about this, because I've been pushing this for the last 8 years, and I think I gave this to you years ago on how to solve the problem, that 211151 is not something the police officers know about. So that what we have is not a golf cart problem. We have a low-speed vehicle NEV situation. We have very few golf carts, because a golf cart, by definition, is a vehicle that can carry only 2 people, go over 15 miles an hour. But part of the 2151 is the bottom one, C. For the purpose of this section, a golf cart includes a low-speed vehicle. How does the city solve the problem? I just want to get through this real quick. We talked about doing this corridor. You didn't ask the question, what happens if the state doesn't apply the corridor? That's reducing it down. Then you have a 50-mile-an-hour road. Is that not right? Okay. I don't see it passing any one of these things. But a definition of a low-speed vehicle is a vehicle that can go 20 miles an hour, four-wheel drive, four wheels, 3,000 pounds. But in that also, it says for the purposes of this section, a low-speed vehicle is not a golf cart except when operated pursuant to 2111.5.1. So a low-speed vehicle is a golf cart that can't go across the Railroad Canyon Road at night during that period of time. So what can be part of the plan? Here's how you solve the thing. I don't only have much time left. I wish you could give me another 3 minutes. I'll tell you how to solve this problem. I've given it to you before, but you won't do that. What you need to do is not what you have and I haven't proposed in page 13 of what was given to you. To say, and this is so incongruous, that what you had proposed to you on page 13 was that you just changed the vehicle, but you keep in there that a golf cart must have lights if it's traveling at night.
John, thank you. Your time's up. You know, I wouldn't mind meeting with you maybe in the chambers sometime in the next couple of weeks if you want to go over what you want to tell everyone. Happy to sit with you.
My time is very valuable. I'm retired, so I can only do it 7 days a week, so you have to figure the time.
Okay. We'll have you come in and we'll have a talk.
Mayor, not to put words in Mr. Zeitz's mouth, but I did read his presentation, and he discusses a golf cart NEV plan. That is something that a lot of communities have adopted recently. There started with a community in South Orange County. I think it's Rancho Mission Viejo. The counties of Los Angeles and Orange have now been given explicit authorization in the vehicle code to adopt NEV plans. And I actually went and reviewed. I went to that community and looked at how their NEV plan operated in practice, and it contains essentially sharrows, which Will Dan is proposing. There are designated streets within the community where NEV operation. And when I say NEV, it's a neighborhood electric vehicle, which is the same as a low-speed vehicle, which is not a golf cart, but everyone calls it a golf cart. I'm not going to go into it. It's going to trigger everybody. But essentially, it's it's not a bad idea to adopt an NEV plan, a low-speed vehicle plan, a golf cart plan for this community. Unfortunately, the legislature only allows our good friends in Orange County and LA County at this point to adopt those plans. Perhaps it's something that we can discuss with our local legislators to extend that authorization either statewide or perhaps to Riverside County. I'm sure there's some communities out in the desert as well that might appreciate the opportunity to have golf cart / NEV plans. In the meantime, we're going to work with the laws we have. I really appreciated, from the city attorney's office perspective, having someone from Wildan who is so familiar with the city of Canyon Lake, because oftentimes when we bring in consultants, this is not a typical community. You have to explain things, but when you're talking about, the golf cart crossing on Railroad Canyon Road to Steve, he's like, oh yeah, I mean, he sees it all the time. So I appreciate it. I also appreciated working with the Sheriff's Department to go over what our path forward is on this. Seen some very good educational materials from other communities that may be useful for that educational campaign. That was RSO. They went and found that. I think it's the kind of thing that would work well here too. So we're putting this together to answer your question specifically, Mayor Pro Tem, which was when we can get the ordinance changes brought forward at the next meeting. We can get the signage and striping plan, and if flashing lights are your fancy, perhaps we can look at that as well. We can bring that forward for council consideration. The critical factor that was, I don't disagree with anything in Mr. Zeitz's presentation except for the going to the city council's motives, and that's only because I wasn't here when those decisions were made. The only thing that we have to look at is we want to maintain that. We want to have an enforceable 45 mile per hour speed limit. That's something that's important to the Sheriff's Department from a safety perspective. It's important to me from a liability perspective. So we're looking at how to make that work. I think one of the things that would be, good for the community and the traveling public would be to have an enforceable speed limit. We have the signage, we have the flashing blue lights. Those have an effect. If you look at the studies, what has the most effect is a sheriff's deputy on a motorcycle with a radar gun. So we're looking forward to bringing that forward on the legal side. Like I said, we're working with the Sheriff's Department, also looking forward to working with County Council. They're going over, these are some new laws, right? They're not even in force yet. So anyone who claims that they're an expert, that they completely understand it, I don't think is accurate. We are going to see what the state regulations provide, and then we'll get that application in. As soon as that's in, I think we will be set. So you're probably looking at after July of this year. But hopefully at that point, what we will have is a golf cart crossing and a public road, both of which everyone understands what the rules are and are able to operate in a safe manner.
Any further discussion? All right, being none, let's move on to item 2. We have a presentation by Director Shea.
Good evening, Your Honorable Mayor, members, City Council, City staff. I too am retired, but not quite as good at it as John is, obviously, so, because I'm still here, so. So what you have before you is the mid-year review. So back in June of 2023, we adopted the 23-24 budget. We had revenues in the general fund of $7,572,000 and $7.5 million in expenditures and transfers out, which left us a slight revenues over expenditures of just under $38,000 for the year. So what I did was I take where we're at. The report says December, but it's really January. Sorry about that on the sheets. So then I project the rest of the year out. Through January, the city has 4 budget adjustments, 3 pretty minor ones, and then the purchase of the fire station, the general fund portion, which is $490,000. And so the way governmental accounting works is you record a revenue and an expenditure, so they kind of net. So that's why the budget seems a lot higher this year. The 490,000 is in there. So some revenues are projected a lot higher. We're about 648,000 over where I thought we would be. Some of these are actual numbers, like the VLF. We get 2 chunks, and we got the first one, so I know what that number is. Interest income is way up because we purchased those CDs at 4% and 5%, and we have a money market fund at 5%. So it was pointed out by several people that my increases that I project don't match my journal entry skills, just being a little conservative. And the big difference is the interest, because at the end of the year, I have to take it back to fair market value. And the last couple of years, it's been $170,000 to $200,000 adjustment one way or the other. So I was a little conservative. So any question on the revenues, the adjustments? No. So the expenditures are tracking right where we want to be, but there are a few items that needed addressed or touched. I'll go over these briefly. So we have a $2,300 increase for WRCOG for the solid waste contract. Additional money for new events like the National Night Out, the National Day of Prayer, Fiesta Days, and we also had increased sponsorship revenue that offset that. We have $40,000 increase in legal costs for special litigation. With the one person in the city manager's office leaving, we had some savings in benefits. That's the $6,000. With the new CBU, we hired a labor negotiator. That was $10,000. We also got the library and consortium with Liebert, Cassidy, and Whitmore. But we also received a $2,500 offset for that $4,000 cost. Microsoft subscriptions, we're just moving that from one account to another account. Then we have $9,500 for city contribution to the Lejeune strategic plan. And then in the building department, they're a little behind in scanning, so we hired a temporary part-time person in that department to help them get caught up. And then in the fire department, the chief mentioned where we hired 2 full-time I forget the exact word there, limited term firefighters. And so the salary is $36,000. Increase for additional overtime because we're pretty close to overtime. And then $11,000 for the health benefits for the new limited term firefighters. And then $4,000 for the PARS retirement. And then our iWorks program, we're going to try to expand that and add more features so it's more transparent. And then we had $19,000 for unexpected costs for a new air conditioner and someone running into the gate at the fire station. And then increase with the purchase of the fire station, we now pay the PLA monthly interest payment and principal, and that's the $8,800 is for the interest from, I think, May to June, and then the $28,000 is the principal from May to June. So if the proposed adjustments are approved, the planned budgeted revenues over expenditures for the year will be about we'll go from $32,000 to $360,000. So, and the expenditures are tracking right where we want to be, especially salaries. Those are right in line. So any questions on any of the revenues or the expenditures? And you kind of have a summary in there on page 145 where I kind of group the revenues by source, and you can see where that $684,000 comes from. And then I go by each department and by salaries, operations, capital, or debt service. And so if you turn to the last page, you can see we're projected to be about $60,000 below budget for expenditures for the year. So any questions on this? This is less questions than the budget. So, all right, that's the presentation.
Any questions from the council? Go ahead.
Thank you for your conservativeness.
Yeah, next year those numbers are going to equal though. So.
Yeah. You need direction, right, Madam Clerk?
Can we just get a motion to approve the suggested budget adjustments?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Aye.
Mayor Welty?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving on to item 11. Director Shea, you're back.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and talk about new capital project funds.
Sure. Back in, I think, May or June, when we adopted the budget, we also created a new fund balance policy. Included in that fund balance policy was an equipment replacement fund. So we're coming before you today to have council authorize the creation of that fund so we can start funding it in this next fiscal year. And so basically that's what we're trying to do, is just set up a new fund. And the money will come from the general fund based on a depreciation schedule that the chief and we worked on together. And so we'll start funding that on an annual basis. And the goal is when we have to start replacing, the fire trucks, the vehicles we bought with the AQMD money. And so when we started the fire station, we had like 4 sources of funds. We had the general fund reserves, we had ARPA, we had debt, and I think we had one other thing. And so what we're trying to do is have money set aside. So in like 5 years, when we need new equipment for the fire chiefs, new trucks, we'll have the cash to pay for it, so we won't have to go into debt. And with interest rates right now, we can get a pretty good rate of return, 4 or 5%. So that is the ultimate goal, is to fund that. And so 10, 15, 20 years when we need new cars, because we kept our cars forever here. And then, we'd have $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 worth of repairs on those cars. But, with most of the equipment being around the same age, we kind of came up with the list of all the vehicles and the equipment, a lifespan, and then divided that and come up with a dollar amount to transfer each year. So.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I thought this was part of what we already adopted when we approved the budget.
We set up the fund balance policy, but didn't create the fund. Now we're creating the fund.
Got it. Okay. Then I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Any other? I have a question. Jeremy, you have a question? Just a question is, do we have anything on the buildings, the similar thing for the reserves for our maintenance on the buildings? Do we have that?
No, that just usually comes out of operational funds. So,
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't done that. This is, I guess we own this building and then the 2 rental properties, but those would be different. So, I mean, we could fund money out of this for repairs, but we haven't done a lot of repairs to this building in a while, so, other than the HVAC system.
Okay.
So.
We can take a look at that later.
Yeah,
See what
yeah.
we can do.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Welty? I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Aye.
Mayor Welty?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Okay, city managers' comments.
Sorry about that. Yes, I have a quick PowerPoint. I know we're trying to get done, so I'll go fast. There was a request made based on recent conversations and some information out in the community about city fees, and I wanted to do a brief recap of where we are with city fees. Obviously, just for the community's benefit, it's critically important to understand that all city fees in any city are determined based on a cost recovery model. So the city's always trying to determine the fees based on the amount of staff needed or systems needed, technology needed, et cetera, to provide those services. In 2022, the city council, or the city did a user fee study, and then in December of 2022, the city council adopted that fee schedule. That user fee study actually looked at that. What are all the services we provide to our community? How many hours go into those services? And there's overhead costs associated, just overall operations of the city, that also get added to each of those fees. This fee schedule went into effect at the beginning of this year. And as part of that, the city also has an EMS subscription program, which was established in 2019, and the fee has remained unchanged since that program was established and officially set in 2020. One thing that I want to mention too is special event fees. There's been some conversation about our change in these fees. some clarification for our community, you're only required to have one special event permit if you have a recurring or a like-for-like event. So something like our farmer's market, Taco Tuesday, those types of events are only required to pay one event fee and only get one permit. They do not have to pay that each and every time. In addition, we're not requiring special event permits, and they're not required for any use of an event facility for an event. So the concerts at the lodge, an event at the amphitheater, they're not required to get a permit from the city or pay any fee associated with that event. We have several tiers, and those were designed to increase or decrease the fee depending on the size and scope of the event. Also, a change that we made was that we determined that attendance was not based on cumulative attendance, rather any given time. So this is important for those hosting events. Please be cautious in the attendance number you put on your application, because if you really want 5,000 people there, that's a great ambitious marketing goal, but it may not be the best in terms of your permit price, because if you end up with 1,000, we're going to look at the permit based on this idea of 5,000 people attending. So attendance matters. We've tried our best to try to reduce that burden on our community. In addition, the City Council voted to waive permit fees for qualified nonprofits, and this continues still. For any nonprofits in our community, you can apply for your events and you won't be charged a fee. And finally, fire and law enforcement fees are a standard for all cities. This is to ensure adequate staffing during large events, and this is something that any city would charge even if we were under CAL FIRE or our own police department, et cetera. There's always going to be costs associated with staffing up if we have large events. And that burden shouldn't lie on the taxpayers or the community. The burden should lie on the event promoter. EMS program fees. I feel that the City of Canyon Lake overall has remained committed to keeping costs low for our residents. We are nearly built out here in Canyon Lake, and so what that means is we have very limited opportunities to generate additional revenues. And this is particularly important because we heard tonight from Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, we heard from the POA that everywhere we're facing extreme cost increases. The city is not exempt from that. Our costs also go up, and the ability for us to generate the revenues to cover those rising costs has been a challenge, I think, since the city was established. So we're always looking for ways to do this without impacting our community as much as possible. The EMS subscription program, though, is designed to fully recover the cost of providing our public safety, particularly our emergency medical services. And the fee is set based on that. What is our cost? And that establishes the fee. For many years, since the program was established, the City Council has been subsidizing that fee by covering the cost through other sources of funding. Those costs have gone up, and the fee has stayed the same. So now we have had to relook at that fee. The city is facing some challenges on existing revenue sources. So again, now we're looking at losing existing revenues, and therefore it's too much of a risk for us to continue to subsidize the fee. We did mail our public hearing notices late. Everybody should have received them, late last week. We have a new webpage that is available online and includes an opt-in and opt-out list for our residents, which is new. You can actually search an address and see if you are opted in. And we also have our public hearing planned for our June City Council meeting. I want to mention one more thing coming from my other previous experience in cities. A lot of cities have special assessments that help fund public safety, city services. So I did a little looking to just kind of see in comparison, how does Canyon Lake's, property taxes, and we don't have a sales tax measure, so we already know we don't charge as much for sales tax. But how does our property taxes compare to some of our neighboring communities where people have an amenity-rich community? And if we take a look at Lake Elsinore, let's say Summerly, Canyon Hills, Tuscany Hills, all of them, every single property there, pays $445 a year for public safety CFD, Community Facilities District. Also, if we look at Menifee, the city of Menifee, Audie Murphy Ranch, a gated community right next to us, they pay $1,000 a year to the city of Menifee for services in that city. So that's just for those CFDs. And what I think this tells us is that overall, this city has done everything it can to try to prevent taxing its residents. And I think it's been successful. When I look at the special assessments at these communities versus Canyon Lake, special assessments in the city of Canyon Lake on a property tax bill is approximately $647 a year. Special assessments in communities like Summerly, And the ones I mentioned are $5,000 to $7,000 a year. So ours pale in comparison to those that you would see in these well-established, amenity-rich communities. And I don't say this to say that we should try to do otherwise, because I say this because I truly do believe, that the city has done everything it can to fund high-quality services with little impact to our residents. And so, while I know the EMS program fee is expected to go up, it is a critical fee to help ensure we continue to cover the cost for our fire department. And with that, that concludes my comments for the evening. Of course, I welcome any questions you have on that.
Was there an increase of 1,000% to the POA?
Absolutely not. We did do a deep dive into all of the fees, and we're not able to find that number. Ours was closer to, I believe, 40 or 47%. And if we add some of the fire costs, it's like 86%. And again, that's because...
And what did that break down to, dollar-wise?
Dollar-wise? Oh, I'm trying to remember from memory. I apologize. I want to say it was like $18,000 between the special permit fees and fire, because it's about $9,000 for fire, $12,000 maybe, closer to. I apologize, I don't know offhand. I could look it up and tell you and let you know. But ultimately, what has happened is when you add in our fire fees, before the city had CAL FIRE, so if the POA had to pay for fire fees associated with events, we don't have that information because that wasn't billed to us. It was billed to the POA. So it looks higher when you start adding in our fees for the fire department because we didn't charge them that in the past. So absolutely no truth in that. I think there's a miscalculation based on how they thought they were going to determine special event permits required for their events, and it was overstated, grossly overstated.
I will say from 3 years ago, before we had our own fire department, and being the treasurer of an organization, CAL FIRE was considerably more expensive. And that was 3 years ago.
Correct. From what we know, we would expect the same.
Specifically for events, is what I meant.
Thank you.
Any other questions? In that case, I am going to announce that our next city council meeting will be held on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. We will now adjourn the meeting at 8:39.
To clarify, we are adjourning back into closed session.
To clarify, we are adjourning back to closed session. Thank you.
And we will make a public report on closed session actions at the next regular meeting of the city council.
Thank you, council. I think we're going to stay here, but I think we're going to take a 10-minute.